I guess this is my apology video. Most channels end up having to do them eventually. So, a couple of parts ago, I said that now that Chris has brought out his little blankie to hide behind playing dumb, that we would be picking up the pace in the Chris Watts prison interview analysis and saving some time. I apologize because this thing is like a black hole. The closer we get to the truth, the denser the material and the harder it is to navigate. I find myself at this point that we're at now, even though he is just using these evasive maneuvers and rolling away tactics, that I'm listening to 30 seconds and taking half a page of notes and not even word for word what I'm going to say, but bullet points. Because it's dealing with things like at the end of part 7, where Graham would ask Chris, "So, Chris, what was the weather like that morning?" "I don't know what was going on that morning. I mean, I know I was right out there in the middle of the air, but I couldn't tell you if it was sunny or if it was rainy or even if it was a blizzard. I don't know what was going on." Did Bella know what the weather was like? No, she didn't know what the weather was like. So it's dealing with a lot of that kind of thing where, okay, obviously you have to know what the weather is to know if someone else knows what the weather is. So it's tricky. This guy is very sneaky, as dumb as he comes across and as easy it is to just make fun of his unintelligence. He's very sneaky. It doesn't take smarts to be cunning. Anyone can notice the everyday patterns of their life and then go against them. It's just whether or not they want to face the consequences. And Chris is blindsided to many of the consequences. So he keeps trying at these sneaky maneuvers, and they work on some people who have the memory of a goldfish and the attention span of a flea. But they work if you don't look deep into them, because he says things that a person who is the person he's pretending to be would actually say. Many human observations, such as they're trying to give him easy ways out and he doesn't take them, which is remarkable for him. He says, nothing that happened was deserved. That's true. Like, sorry doesn't take back what I did. That's true. That's good to say. And he even rejects Graham. Graham offers him the option of looking even better than Chris is trying to make himself look. And Chris rejects it, which really strengthens his argument, because he has a chance there to just take that bait and make himself look better when Graham gives him the offer of, "There was a thought that maybe you thought of all of you going together. Was that it? Was this a mercy thing?" Like, that's what a family man does, is he makes everyone be together. And Chris says, no, family man doesn't do what he did. And also, it's easy to say that after the fact, but it was just in anger. I was taking my anger out on everyone that morning. Ooh, so close to the truth. It sounds real good. It sounds like the truth. It sounds like a good guy. Wow, he's willing to take responsibility here for his actions, and he's admitting that he was a bad man when he did this stuff. But not quite. Not quite when you look into it a little further. Because first of all, the anger he's talking about, he's trying to pass it off as a momentary rage out of control, spurred on by the emotional conversation that we already called BS on. And that it was just momentary rage that he was taking out on everyone that morning. But when you look at the facts closer, he didn't take it out on his coworkers. When they showed up half an hour after he disposed of the bodies, he didn't take any anger out on them. They described him as acting perfectly normally. It was a normal workday, in the DA's words. He didn't take it out on Shanann's friends and family when they were asking where Shanann was, where the kids were. He was acting perfectly normally for them. Maybe a little less worried than he should be, but no rage. He didn't take it out on the police when they were questioning him. He was acting like the innocent man who didn't know what was going on at all. Because he didn't snap with rage. The anger that he was taking out on everyone, as he says, it was only related to his wife and kids. His rage was tied to his family, and he intended to get away with the crime he committed. It was predetermined and to release his rage. Now that his wife and kids were gone, the rage was gone. A mere half hour after he's disposed of the bodies, nobody notices any signs of rage or anything wrong with him, other than, as we'll get to later, his change of clothes. And he goes for sympathy again before you can have time to think about that, what I just said. If you're just listening in real time, you might not have time to investigate the truth and veracity of those statements. And you might just think, oh, what a good guy, he's taking responsibility. But then he goes right into distracting you by getting more sympathy for himself by saying the detail of, what was it? I could have, right now, I could have a 5-year-old daughter, a 4-year-old daughter, and a 1-month-old son. But now it's just me. And that sounds like he's remorseful too, and it makes you think, yeah, you gave up your whole family, poor guy. You realize the mistake you made. But is it remorseful or triumphant? Because, as we said, the rage was tied to his wife and kids. After his wife and kids were gone, the rage was gone. And I think that he's fallen back into his doublespeak here with, now it's just me. I got rid of all of them. The family, he could have the wife and the kids who caused his rage, his murderous rage, but now it's just me. So maybe that's one of those things he's been thinking in prison to alleviate his own misery over being caught. Well, now it's just me. At least there's that. But now that he's trying to go for sympathy, he's switched his performance of that thought to, no, it's just me. And Tammy sees that, whether it's conscious or unconscious, but she calls him out on that BS by taking a left turn and bringing up the family videos, the vlogs, that a lot of people have a lot of things to say about. And she says how you just don't seem happy in a lot of the videos. And I think Graham and Baumover say the same thing, how you don't seem happy, you don't want to be there, you don't like being in them. Why couldn't you tell Shanann? And Chris tries to play off how, remember, there's that video that gets replayed a lot where Shanann sets it up to reveal that she's pregnant with their third kid. And Chris says, no, that's not that I wasn't happy. I was just surprised that it happened so quickly. And the reason Tammy knows that was BS and that he really wasn't happy is because in the build up to the polygraph and the interrogation, remember how she got him to expose himself as a fraud in 2 separate parts, where she got him to admit that he had been falling out of love. Their relationship had been falling out of love for a year, more like a year. And then at a different part of the conversation, got him to admit that they were still actively trying to get pregnant 2 months earlier. So on the one hand, he's falling out of love with her for a year, and on the other hand, he's still trying to get her pregnant 2 months ago. So that just exposed him as a scumbag. So Tammy remembers that, and then she's saying, so you didn't really seem happy in the videos, alluding to that, what we said earlier, how the rage was tied to being a family man, and he's trying to skirt that with his presentation of his rage, and how he's trying to spin it now that he's the victor as far as being alive when his victims are dead. He's the one rewriting history. So that doesn't work because he just keeps saying, no, I was just surprised. And once again, for people with the attention span of a flea and the memory of a goldfish, this works because people look at the videos, the family vlogs, and think that Shanann was abusive. Now, first of all, anyone who takes family vlogs seriously needs to take a second look. Have you heard the phrase fake book? How applicable? If you've been listening to me talk about this case for what is it, 6 or 7 hours now combined, going back to the interrogation review and now this prison interview analysis, it might surprise you to know that I'm usually the quietest person in the room. So videos don't always represent everyday life. And on the subject of people thinking Shanann was abusive because they look at the videos and say that she was the dominant one and that she was controlling everything, and then Chris was afraid to say anything. Has Chris ever shown up anywhere in any of these videos, or did anyone ever mention him showing up with a black eye? Did he ever have to call into work because his arm was in a sling? Did he ever hobble around the corner into a family vlog on a crutch? No. So because, as Chris admits to after they ask him, couldn't you say no to being in these? If you didn't want to be in them, Chris just wanted to be in the background and the family vlogs weren't him, he admits. Why didn't he just say no? Because he was too much of a pushover to say no and have valid reason not to do it? That makes Shanann abusive? That doesn't really compute. The videos are as fake as any family vlog, not abusive. I see no signs of abuse. And even neighbor Nate, when he was, they get into this next in the prison interview, how neighbor Nate retracted his claim that they would have screaming matches at each other. They were screaming at the top of each other's lungs. And he later said that wasn't the case when he was talking. He told that to Officer Coonrod when they were looking at the security camera footage of Chris loading the bodies. How that was the one thing that didn't ring true that neighbor Nate said, was how they were screaming at each other. I cannot picture Chris screaming ever. He internalizes his rage until he can get away with releasing it, such as in a murderous way. So that didn't ring true at all to me. Everything else he said rang true about how Chris's behavior didn't seem right and how he was just trying to cover his tracks. So it's good that he later retracted that, because that didn't make sense. So the changing of the clothes, that shows Chris's forethought, even though he's been trying to say how this was all just in a momentary rage. But they always kept an extra set of clothes for oil spills. And Chris says how he spilled oil on his clothes one day, and they gave him a headache for 2 weeks. So ever since then, he keeps an extra set of clothes, boots, everything, just in case he needs to change his clothes. And we know how Chris was thinking about that at the time. Well, I have an extra set of clothes now. If I ever need to dispose of evidence, I can do it and have an excuse to get away with it. And of course, nobody, when they showed up, said, "You're wearing a different set of clothes today, Chris. Did you do a murder?" No, they said, "Hey, what are you, slumming today, buddy?" is what one of his coworkers said when they saw him wearing his extra set of clothes. Because he ran out of time and couldn't change them soon enough before his coworkers showed up because of all the things he was doing and he was running behind. So they noticed, but they didn't immediately say he was murdering people and covering up evidence by changing clothes. So that shows his forethought, that he would show up on that day in a different set of clothes. And then the GPSs they bring up in the prison interview, he stopped at a construction site to throw them away. What a remorseful guy. He just couldn't live with the evidence of his crime, so he had to quickly stop on the way home to let the cop into his house. He had to quickly stop at a construction site and throw it away. Now I'm sad again. So then right back to saying, to cover up his reveal that he was hiding evidence by throwing his extra set of clothes in the dumpster at a construction site, right back to covering that up by saying it was all just a reaction. It was all just happening so fast. I didn't have to have a thought that was my own, which is true. But that's related to the fact that his plan didn't go according to plan. He was on his plan B at this time. Everything happened that was outside of his original plan, and he was calling audibles at that point. And so it's not like he was out of control with rage and can't believe he murdered and now he doesn't know what to do with the rest of his life. It was, oh shit, my plan isn't working the way I was thinking about it for weeks. Now I have to do this and do that and do that. Oh, are they going to catch me now? That's what it was all happening so fast that I didn't have a time to have a thought that was my own. He was just reacting to, how am I going to cover this up now? It's not the way I foresaw it. And he really takes it personally when it's brought up that he separated the bodies, like he was trying to get rid of evidence. Like they said in the sentencing hearing, I was trying to dutifully separate people. I wasn't trying to separate anybody. No, because your original plan was to just murder everybody in the house and then throw them all into the same hole. But for all of the audibles you had to call, for all the reasons we mentioned, especially in the interrogation review, it didn't go according to plan. So you had to separate them. And that's why you're so mad. You're not mad that people, you're mad that people call you out on it being a premeditated murder. And you're also mad that your plan didn't go according to plan, that you had to change it. And that those changes led to you being caught. Thanks to the heroics of Bella and Celeste and Nico. So he had to adjust in real time, and he just got, what's that? Oh, hi, Chris, 3 minutes in the future. I was just talking to Chris in real time. And I was talking about how you didn't know what was going on and how you didn't know what you were doing and how this was all just spur of the moment. So, what's that? You packed a lunch in the middle of all this? You packed a lunch and brought it to work? Huh. Well, Chris in real time was just talking about bringing a gas can because he was suicidal. Well, anyway, back to how real time Chris was having the emotional conversation with Shanann from 4:30 to 5 o'clock in the morning or so. What's that? You were in the basement from 4 to 4:30 a.m. getting garbage bags to cover up the parts of her dead body before you actually had the emotional conversation? Huh. Well, that doesn't really make sense, Chris, from 3 minutes in the future. Maybe we can clarify this by getting back to how this wasn't a Criminal Minds plot and how you say that this wasn't forethought, this wasn't any premeditated plan. What? You called the school to say that they wouldn't be coming in an hour after you murdered them? You called the realtor to see if you could sell the house faster? You were looking up jewelry to get for your mistress? You were Googling the Metallica song that you relate to getting rid of your family? You know what, Chris, from 3 minutes in the future, maybe you should just stop talking because you're really, really making Chris in real time look bad. You're looking really terrible. Um, and this is really, it only works for people with the memory of a fish and the attention span of a flea. So maybe you should just stop talking, Chris, from 3 minutes in the future, because you're really undercutting Chris in real time. Uh, so anyway, I think I'm gonna have to call it quits there, and I'll see you in part 9.